What is your guess I can't go into that store ever again story? Went to a pizza place to pick up an order. Was handed the food and said, "Thank you, sir." The response was, "My name's Tiffany." Had to send my wife in to get the food until Tiffany didn't work there anymore. I used to go to a bagel store near my work pretty often, maybe once a week or so. Family owned shop with the dad, uncle, mom etc. all working there, as well as the owner's daughter during the summer. I was always pretty friendly to everyone and talked to the whole family as we were both from New York but lived in the South now. Well, one time, after getting a sandwich to go and getting back to the office, I saw the daughter, who was maybe only a few years younger than me, had written her number on the to-go container, which was great, except I was happily engaged at the time. So later that week I went back, got lunch, and let her know I was flattered, but I was in a relationship, and she was very polite, and we just kind of moved on. The next week, I went back in again. The daughter wasn't working, but when I went to order, the whole family started grilling me on why I wouldn't date their daughter, accusing me of making up my fiance, saying I led her on and broke her heart. Again, we had never had any conversations more intimate than, "How's school? Oh wow, the weather is hot today. Yeah, I miss New York sometimes too, hahaha." Then they asked how I was going to make it up to her, at which point I kind of slowly started leaving and told them I wasn't sure, but I will think of something, and have never returned since. I got a gym membership for the first time recently. A lot of the machines are pretty self-explanatory, but I've never used a lot of them, so I have no idea what I'm doing. So a few weeks ago I'm trying out the endless stare machine, and in front of me is a guy on a machine working his arms, like making circular pedaling motions. I thought, I could do my arms too. So I take the machine next to his, set the timer for 10 minutes, just circling away. I finish my 10 minutes, and look down by the seat to see handles. It was a leg machine. I sat there for 10 minutes in front of the entire gym, God, and everybody circling my arms like a lunatic. I mean, I'm still going back, because I paid for it, but I'm not going to look anyone in the eye there ever again. Not a store, but a public library. We're at the counter, and the librarian is scanning the books we've selected. She was generously sized. My little brother, 4 or 5 at the time, tugs my mom down to whisper something in her ear. He was rather new to the concept of whispering. He put his hand up to shield his lips from the librarian. Despite all this, he says about the librarian at standard speaking volume, "Hey mom, you ever notice how fat that lady is?" Mom tried to play it off by saying something akin to, "He thinks it's okay to say it to others cause he says it to me, but my mom's not fat." It did not work. We used to go there every day when my mom didn't want to have to hire a babysitter to watch us during the summer. She'd bring us to her office and let us walk across the street to the public library to play games on their Windows Vista PCs or just read books. She'd always come to pick us up when she was done with work. She started looking for babysitters soon after. Back when I was getting married, I was sick as a dog, and my soon-to-be bride insisted we go shopping for the wedding invites. Went into this pretty higher-end shop and really felt ill, and not just at the prices. Asked one of the workers if they had a restroom I could use. Long story short, took a massive smelly diarrhea dump, clogged the toilet, and they had no plunger to fix it with. Even though I only flushed once, the toilet kept running, and it started to overflow. Rushed out, closed the door, grabbed my bride by the arm and just said, "We gotta go." I was with a group of friends in a very quiet store. We were slowly leaving one by one through the double glass doors. One of it was closed, and the other stayed opened. I somehow thought the closed door was opened and vice versa, so I walked smack into the middle of the closed glass door. My face was imprinted on it. I guess my face was very oily. My friends and the shopkeeper came rushing to see if I was okay. Then all marveled at my squashed face imprint. I left quickly. Every time I walk past that shop, I make sure I'm looking down or at the other side in case the staff recognize my face. While at the till at the convenience store paying for my lunch, the girl behind the counter asked if I wanted to go for a drink. Being married, I made my apologies hastily, pointing to the ring on my fingers. To which she replied that my lunch was a meal deal and would be cheaper with a drink. Went on a first date with this girl to a new restaurant in town. She proceeded to get sloppy drunk and made a huge scene. From the classic could not control the volume of her voice to insisting on trying to show me and some other gentleman nearby what kind of underwear she had on while loudly insisting that she's a good girl though. The server we had seemed to get that I was not a willing part of this, but I was so mortified there's no way I'd ever go back. Do barbershops count? Decided to get a haircut whilst having a cold. Sneezed and farted at the same time. Never went back. Oh god, I finally have a reason to share this story. One of the first jobs I had, I approached my boss in his office to discuss a report. As I was standing near him, he was sitting in his chair reading the file on his desk. I felt a sneeze come on. Knowing that I didn't have time to grab a tissue, I just turned away from him. However, the sneeze held off, but the gas in my stomach did not. I crop dusted the poor man. Embarrassed, I whipped my body back around to face him, and the centripetal force of my motion must have knocked my sinuses loose. I sneezed upon completing the spin, but was in too much shock to cover my face. I gave my boss both an aura of noxious odor and mucus spewed across his face. I pissed all over the floor of a toy store when I was a toddler. My poor dad was mortified, but the staff were very nice about it. The store's closed now, which really sucks. I don't think I actually remember the name of the place. When I was a kid, my family went to a pizzeria and before the food came I went to inspect the plumbing. They had those sinks where you press down on the knob and the water would flow, with the knob slowly raising back up before it would turn off after 20 seconds. I used my fist and hit the top of the knob and the thing just popped off, and a huge geyser of water was erupting non-stop. Me and another kid were in there. We looked at each other and just bolted from the bathroom. I got back to my seat and just sat there silent. Then my mom went to use the bathroom, and when she came back she told us this story of how there was a pool in the bathroom hallway and the manager and an employee were in the men's room slipping and sliding trying to shoot off the water. My whole family was laughing at the story, but I just sat there silent. They asked me what's wrong, and I told them it was me that did it. They never fail to mention it every time we drive past a pizzeria even now 20 years later. I've never stepped foot in one since then. I was in a souvenir shop in London, England, with all these knickknacks and whatnot. I bumped a shelf that had a bunch of models of Big Ben, and like 6 or 7 of them fell off the shelf and broke. I offered to pay for them, but the employees blew it off. I guess minimum wage workers don't care enough about their actual company policy. Thankfully, I was grateful, and now I will never return to that particular store. I used to go to the same haircut place since I was in kindergarten until I was in my teens. One day I go for a haircut and get this new, fairly attractive woman. As she's starting I start to sweat. Now sometimes when I was younger my head would get really hot and my head would sweat when I was put on the spot sometimes. Anxiety I guess, no idea, but it's mostly gone away thankfully. Usually a few drops of sweat will roll down my face when this happens, but not today. It was like someone was standing over me slowly pouring a bottle of water slowly over my head. It just kept going and going. Eventually the girl mentions, "Wow, you must be really hot." I'm already very nervous and blurt out the first thing that pops into my head. "Yep, it must be because you're pretty." I'm not sure why this is happening. You're pretty but it's not like you're that pretty. So pretty much, as soon as the last words are leaving my mouth I start asking myself, why in God's name would you say that? Now I'm even more embarrassed, and I have to sit through a haircut feeling like an idiot. A drippy wet idiot. Actual surveillance footage of me as the haircut was finishing. I spent the rest of the haircut praying for it to be done quickly, or for a meteor to come through the ceiling and put me out of my misery. The girl handled the rest of the haircut like a goddamn pro. No idea why she didn't just kick me out. She finished, I paid, gave her a huge tip, and now I drive farther to get my haircut done somewhere else. This is a fond memory. Moved downtown to our university area. Got myself a sweet deal on a cheap, ghetto as F studio. The kind that get rented out to poor students next to the area homeless shelter. 2006. Rent is only $300 a month, and I'm not in school. Too busy being punk rock and making just enough for a roof and partying. Paradise. One weekend, I go to a show, get completely shithoused, and stumble back up the hill to either get more messed up or pass out at home. I decide to stop at the 7-Eleven directly across from my building, you know. Snacks. I grab everything my impulses and lack of inhibition tells me to, and I'm about to pay for this garbage and be on my way. Set my things on the counter and politely introduce myself to the cashier as she is ringing up my last couple things without any kind of warning or rumbling beforehand. I'm in excruciating pain, right in my gut. A split second flashes by. I clutch and clench my legs together. I gasped bathroom to her. It was too late 5 seconds ago. I try to take a step and bam. My bowels unleash with not only an ungodly sound from my ass, but a simultaneous yelp, as if I were a chihuahua that had just been stomped on. I swear I have never been so suddenly sober without a cop being involved. I have shorts on. I look down, and just liquid shit down the back of my leg, into my boots, and starting to puddle on the floor. I just ran. No change. No snacks. No words. I lived at that spot for almost 2 years. Never went back, and never even walked across their lot to get anywhere. I would walk the same way around that place, to avoid it every day. I feel terrible. When I was much younger, about 9 or 10, I went to a large PC store with my dad, who wanted to ask a technician about an upgrade. Before we left the house, my dad asked if I needed the toilet first, which I said no to. Predictably, on the way I started feeling like I needed to pee, but knowing that I had only 5 minutes earlier told my dad I didn't need to go, I said nothing. We got stuck in traffic for about 30 minutes and the need was becoming urgent. But I thought to myself, I'm a big boy now, I can handle this, I'll just go behind the store when we get there. Nope. So when we pull up, I pretend to my dad that I'm going to look at the games at the front of the store and he could find me there when he was done. So he walked off to the back of the store where the technician's desk was. I took my chance and snuck out to execute my master plan. Little did I know that the rear car park of the retail center was being used for some sort of event. I don't recall what it was, but I just remember a lot of people standing around talking and singing. So I abandoned my attempt and returned to the store. I was at the point of bouncing on the spot to keep it in. One lapse in concentration, and it was game over. I returned to the game section and was walking up and down frantically, pretending to browse when all I was really doing was trying not to piss myself. Clearly I was acting strangely, and this led to the security guard coming over to see if I was okay. Except when he arrived, he turned the corner just as I was coming to the end of the aisle, and we basically ran straight into each other. The brief moment of shock was all it took to break my piss holding zen. It started as a couple of hot drips that just soaked the front of my underwear, but the seal was now broken, and no matter what I did, there was nothing that could stop that tsunami of warm amber that was now streaming down both of my legs. I could do nothing but stand there and started crying hysterically. Safe to say that when my dad heard this and came running, he decided that he would not be making a purchase that day, and to this day I have never set foot in that store again. That's it for today. Take care.